Welcome back everyone to Gotcha Interact. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Citlali since we have all of these kits revealed recently to us. In the last video, we talked about Malwika. Now let's talk about Citlali. So looking right into her stuff, she ascends into Elemental Mastery as you do level her up, which is interesting as she is an EM scaler with her shield and maybe a few other things, and we'll talk about that. But getting right into things, looking at her normal attack, nothing really special is going on here, just your typical normal attack. She is a catalyst user, it looks like, so she'll be a cryo damage dealer with the catalyst. Just the normal attack, charge attack, plunging attack, nothing special. But Vixen, jumping right into the skill, what do we see there?
Well, the skill is called Dawnfrost Dark Star. Citlali deploys an opal shield and calls forth its Papa, a creature that is reputedly and terrifyingly beyond compare, dealing Night Soul aligned AoE cryo damage. The Opal Shield's damage absorption scales based on, just like you said, Rift, Citlali's Elemental Mastery, which I believe is the first of its kind, and absorbs cryo damage with 250% efficiency. After using this skill, Citlali gains 24 Night Soul points and enters her Night Soul Blessing state. In the Night Soul Blessing state, when its Papa leaves the field, Citlali exits the Night Soul Blessing state. The little character Eats Papa will follow the active character as well. If Citlali has at least 50 Night Soul points, Eats Papa enters the Opal Fire state and continuously consumes Night Soul points to whip up a Frostfall Storm that attacks opponents within its AoE, dealing Night Soul aligned cryo damage. When Citlali's Night Soul points are fully depleted, Eats Papa's Opal Fire state also will end, as well as obviously the Night Soul Blessing state.
Chaska is upon us, but with the Pyro Archon looming on the horizon, we are all making sure we have enough Primogems to pull her. Want to give yourself the best shot at bringing Chaska home without overspending? That's where Loot Bar comes in. With Loot Bar, you can top up your account at a discount so you can pick up Chaska and still afford Malwika. Loot Bar keeps things simple and secure. The only thing they need is your UID and server. No passwords or emails are needed. And for those late night, last minute pulls, Loot Bar offers 24/7 live chat support. It's the backup you need, especially when luck feels like, well, it's not on your side. If you're still on the fence, just check out over 13,000 player reviews praising Loot Bar. Plus, your currency will hit your account in just 30 minutes or less. Other creators use Loot Bar too. Click the link in the description or pinned comment and make the smart choice with Loot Bar. Now, back to the video.
Now, looking a little bit beyond specifically the skill, Rift, what can you tell us about the burst?
Well, looking at her burst called Edict of Entwined Splendor, it says that it will summon forth allies from the starry skies in the vast earth, hurling an icy storm to bombard the area in front that deals Night Soul aligned AoE cryo damage, restores a fixed amount of Night Soul points to Citlali, and also summons one Spirit Vessel Skull near a maximum of 3 opponents within the AoE. Spirit Vessel Skulls explode after a period of time, dealing Night Soul aligned cryo damage and restoring a fixed amount of Night Soul points to Citlali. And that's really all there is to it. It's kind of basic, kind of condensed, but doing a few things there. You know, doing some damage, then it's summoning these things, restoring some Night Soul points. So kind of utility, but a little bit of damage, because it does look like the damage multiplier on this is pretty high. If we're looking at a crown talent, just assuming the talent's level 10 at C0 with a crown, the storm damage from the initial use of it is almost 1,000%. It sits at 967.7%. So it seems like it's a pretty hefty multiplier. So maybe certain things, like maybe getting this to melt in certain teams, will probably be a pretty impressive number, especially for a shield type character, because that does seem to be what Citlali is primarily, is a shielder and more of a sustain. But having this additional damage also in her kit kind of makes her feel kind of like a Cryo Zhongli, just because if you build a hybrid Zhongli, you know, one of the best shielders in the game, of course, but also has some damage potential in his Planet Befall, his burst. So that's kind of what I'm getting here, just kind of looking everything initially, but also a Natlan character has some Night Soul mechanics. That's obviously going to be good for Natlan characters like Malwika that we just talked about. So that's going to be very good. But looking beyond that, let's talk about the passive. So Vixen, what is the first one?
Well, the first passive is 5 days of frigid rain. Now this states that when Citlali is in the Night Soul Blessing state, after nearby party members trigger the frozen or melt reactions, the pyro and hydro resistance of opponents affected by that reaction will get their reaction decreased of pyro and hydro resistance by 20% for 12 seconds. Additionally, Citlali will regain 16 Night Soul points, and Night Soul points can be restored this way once every 8 seconds. So this is extremely helpful. Never mind the Pyro and Hydro resistance shred, because obviously for the on-fielders, whoever you pair her with, this allows possibly the idea of like freeze teams, maybe to not necessarily be meta, but it allows them to just be a little bit stronger. We finally have a support character that just brings these Cryo characters and these Hydro freeze teams a little bit, back into play a little bit. Now, once again, it's not going to be something that's going to shotgun them to the top of the charts, but it will bring a little bit more strength to them and possibly future characters as well. Obviously, the Pyro characters that are on field, sadly, all the Pyro characters are already pretty strong anyway, so now this is just making them even stronger, but that is still a good thing. Also, though, a pretty big part about this I want you guys to remember is that this will also help Citlali regain Night Soul points. Now, it does happen every 8 seconds, but it is 16 Night Soul points, and if you remember, through the burst that Rift went over, as well as the skill, you're gaining Night Soul points, and you're trying to get to 50, so all these ways that she's constantly getting Night Soul points is actually very beneficial for her. But looking a little bit beyond this, Rift, what is the next passive talent that we see here?
Well, her second passive talent is called White Butterfly Star Garment, and it states that during the elemental skill called Dawnfrost Dark Star, its Papa's Frostfall Storm damage is increased by 90% of Citlali's elemental mastery. During the elemental burst, Edict of Entwined Splendor, Ice Storm damage is increased by 2,400% of Citlali's elemental mastery. In addition, when nearby party members trigger Night Soul Burst, Citlali regains 4 Night Soul points. So once again, more Night Soul regain is, so all of this adding up, she's going to be regaining Night Soul pretty quickly. I mean, through the burst, it's giving it to her over time. I think it gives like 3 Night Soul points every time it ticks. With the initial gain that you get is like 24. And then you've got the first passive we went over, this passive, the skill. So she's going to be getting Night Soul points a lot. And just seeing that fluctuation of Night Soul is probably going to be good for a character like Malwika that we talked about. And if you haven't seen that video, you can go check it out. It's the last one we made, talking about how her burst works, because basically Malwika wants to see a lot of Night Soul gain and decrease. On top of that, though, the damage that she's getting, Citlali here, from just her elemental mastery, her skill damage is increased, but that burst damage increase, which is already, like we talked about earlier, almost 1,000% multiplier at level 10. That's a really high damage percent. So I'm kind of curious to see just how much damage she'll have. I know it's based on her elemental mastery, and she is a cryo damage dealer with having the shield. So it's hard to say that it's going to be really impressive just because she's not like Omega focusing on it. She's really a shielder, but I'm still excited to see, there might be people wanting to do Citlali cryo nukes. That might be a thing, and that'd be kind of cool to see. So that's a really powerful passive just because it's giving her more damage, but also giving her more Night Soul.
I think overall, seeing everything we have here, that this really does just bring a lot to the table. Now, also keep in mind that Citlali has a similar life talent to what Malwika has. Malwika has one where it helps with the party's Night Soul transmission cooldown being decreased, but Citlali here states that while in an area with Phlogiston mechanics within Natlan, so you have to be within Natlan and have Phlogiston going, triggering Night Soul Burst restores 20 Phlogiston. And we've stated this a lot because a lot of people kind of don't know exactly what the Night Soul Burst means. As long as you have a character in the team that is from Natlan and any type of elemental damage from any of the characters, even if they're not from Natlan, do damage, then is triggering a Night Soul Burst. Now, having more characters from Natlan is going to bring the cooldown of this being able to happen. It's going to bring that cooldown down, which is good because that means it's happening quicker, allowing these passives from different characters to trigger. I believe only one Night Soul character or one Natlan character is like an 18-second cooldown, and it gets brought down more, but we're seeing here that it is 20 Phlogiston. It's not necessarily anything crazy. It does state here that domains, trounce domains, and spiral abyss it cannot take effect in. That's pretty obvious and makes kind of sense. But with the idea of the Phlogiston getting restored here, it is kind of helpful a little bit, more or less. It's probably mainly obviously for overworld exploration or fighting or whatnot. So it's not necessarily a useless talent, but it's just kind of one that you're not really going to be using in most of your battles. But, I mean, overall, Rift, from what we're seeing from this, let's just say an EM shielder was not in my bingo card for this Genshin Impact version. So, I don't know. I'm excited to see what she can do. I'm excited to see kind of what people do, maybe some sort of Ultra EM way, and does that still allow for damage? Usually your EM people don't go into crit. Are people gonna do a crit build with EM? Because, usually the Dendro reactions don't, specific ones don't get crit, so unless you have constellations on characters. So here, though, I'm interested to kind of think about that as well.
It is definitely very interesting having a shielder that scales into elemental mastery. I mean, we don't even see that in someone like Baiju. You would think Baiju would be the first person to be like that just because he's a Dendro character, and you would think he would be able to take more use of elemental mastery into, you know, just other things because, well, Dendro. And that's just kind of thematic with Dendro. But no, it's HP. It's just different. So to see this in a Cryo character is just really kind of interesting and really gets you thinking about what kind of teams could Citlali be in where she's enhancing the damage, or maybe she's even doing some personal damage because her damage looks like it has potential. It's just kind of hard to get an idea. Maybe she just doesn't scale very well, perhaps because she's a shielder. So maybe that's why the multipliers are so ridiculously high to kind of balance that. I don't know. But seeing an elemental mastery shielder, and it looks really good. I mean, the shield duration is 20 seconds. So that's the same as Zhongli, to give it perspective, and the cooldown 16 seconds on her skill. So if it's powerful enough, then you have no downtime on a shield. So she's, I think, the runner-up to Zhongli. I don't know, and I don't think that her shield's going to be as powerful as Zhongli. Zhongli's just kind of on a different level. That is, like, when it comes to shielding, that shield's really difficult to match. So I think she'll get pretty close, but I'm not too sure about her overtaking Zhongli's placement. Because, I mean, he is an Archon in general, so it's going to be hard to replace that. But I think there will be some really interesting teams. You know, that first passive, being able to decrease Pyro and Hydro resistance based on if you're doing a Frozen or Melt reaction, that could open up some pretty interesting teams. Like, one thing that came to my mind was your traditional Hu Tao team. Maybe just replace Zhongli with Citlali, but still use Yelan, Xingqiu, maybe even throw Farina in there instead of Xingqiu. And you're going to give Hu Tao, but also Yelan, Farina, more damage because you're gonna freeze at some point. If you're going through the rotation, you're starting off with Farina or starting off with Yelan, you're gonna use Citlali before Hu Tao, you're gonna freeze before using Hu Tao, and you get that buff for 12 seconds. So you're gonna get a massive resistance decrease, not just for Hu Tao, but also Yelan's personal damage from off field for Rina. And so you could also get some melts in there. Maybe if you do happen to freeze and Hu Tao gets the hit off, she's melting. But the point is, as long as you do it one time in the setup, you get this really cool, technically debuff because it's on the enemy, decreasing the resistance for Pyro and Hydro by 12 seconds. So I see that as something very powerful, and I think something that Citlali kind of has that's unique to give an interesting buff based on her initial kit right here. And so I'm pretty excited about that. I'm sure you can do that in other teams as well. Any kind of team that wants to do Pyro or Hydro damage, I'm sure you can figure out how you can make Citlali be a support for that to be able to just increase the damage for those type of characters, because all you have to do is create that reaction one time, and that could just happen during setup every rotation.
Yeah, my mind actually went over to a Neuvillette team, and that's just because every single time I try to think, I'm thinking high tier characters, but you know, yeah, your Neuvillette, your Arlecchino, your top tier DPS in the game right now are probably going to do better with this, possibly. And allowing, you know, someone like Arlecchino to melt because there's pretty good, consistent, at least somewhat consistent cryo application here, could allow someone that's hitting constant normal attacks like Arlecchino to actually have some pretty good damage output. But I would say either way that it's still going to be strong for them, but a lot of other characters, I mean, some older characters that might, you know, just have quote-unquote fallen out of the meta, or maybe just don't quite fit the bill anymore for certain teams or certain playthroughs. This character, I think, is going to be a lot of a rejuvenation for some characters that I think a lot of people are going to have some fun with as well. Also, I just really did want to say pretty quickly that in one of her other passives that she has where it talks about her phlogiston and how that exactly works, they do it with every character and they're pretty much very, very similar. The wording's just changed a little bit. But with her, she's a different kind of character, the same thing that you'll see in Auroron. Additionally, she will also be able to hold the jump button when she's in one of these other modes, and she'll basically be able to consume stamina and leap, or she'll be able to prioritize consuming phlogiston to leap to a higher height and like hold out with her normal attack and consume phlogiston and stamina to enter into an aiming mode and trigger charge attacks when she's in midair, and use phlogiston to do so as well. So kind of similar to what you see in Auroron, just a very similar idea, and considering she's his quote-unquote granny, that is kind of something that's kind of cool to see them both be able to do together. So I did just want to state that as something else we do see, at least, that she can do. But I think that's everything we really have to talk about Citlali. Keep in mind, with her, obviously, you know, a lot of EM as a character, so as you guys are grinding sets and whatnot, you guys can go ahead and look for that as you are getting the pieces for what you want. But if you guys do like the video, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Check out our Discord as well. If you guys have any other ideas on what you're hoping for what Citlali does, or maybe how they'll change some certain things, or maybe some teams, go ahead and let us know down in the comments. Thank you guys for watching the video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.